Grunt.
This week's episode is extremely graphic. Listener discretion is advised.
Okay, and welcome to They Know, episode 2. I mean, we made it.
We're not dead yet. We haven't found anything super well.
I mean, after the staggering amount of truths that we learned last time, I feel like I've grown as a person, and that I feel like this entire podcast will lead to us maybe ascending to whatever's after this.
We are getting intellectually more powerful.
There's no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's great. I am once again one of your two hosts. I am the agent
and
settler of Huey Heston. My name is Bah.
I am the agent and settler of Matthew Arnold, PA, known as MAP.
And you're probably expecting an episode about soy.
Because we might have said that's what it was going to be.
See, maybe in the future we won't do that, so
Probably
we don't have to address these problems. So after a week and a half of investigation, there's just not that much to talk about.
Yeah, either none of it's real, or it's so real that it's been redacted from the internet
the world
for real. Because I couldn't find anything. When I was trying to search for soy stuff on YouTube, I told you there's a rapper named Big Soy.
And yeah.
I couldn't find anything else about soy conspiracies besides this rapper.
And that was my favorite title for an episode. That episode was going to be titled Babes in Soyland.
It's a good name.
It was a good name, and so basically what we found out is that soy boys are an alt-right way to make teas, to tease,
SJWs, basically.
basically.
What they determine as SJWs.
Yeah. So a soy boy is just, you drink soy, and the estrogen turns you feminine.
Yep.
And it's based entirely on pseudo-science, and it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a Rick and Morty fan way of trying to insult somebody.
That's a way to put it.
But yeah, and then you've got the second section was going to be Big Soy, and as you said,
he's a rapper.
Big Soy's a rapper. It was like Big Oil, but we couldn't. I mean, Big Soy might exist, but they are so well hidden. There's just not that much about him.
No.
And then lastly, the one that we were really excited for.
I know. I wanted to find stuff on this so bad.
Was Soy becomes sentient.
Right.
Which is amazing. What is that?
What does that even mean? Are we...
After the first page of just Googling it, it's nothing. The first page is some light stuff, and then one of the first pages was, is there a soy conspiracy? And I'm like, this is no information at all. So after a week and a half of us just sort of circling the drain, finding really nothing about soy that was anything interesting. It was a blow.
Dude, I was hoping the sentient soy thing was going to be a conspiracy about how we're all carriers of some new form of life. Dude, if you eat soy, you're harboring some sort of embryo inside you or something.
That really could have been amazing.
I know. And now we got nothing.
And we have nothing to show for it. So in the future, we won't tell you what the next episode is.
No.
But sorry, no soy for you. So we pivoted. We pivoted, you know. We have several episodes planned, so we just stole from another episode, and that episode is about government conspiracies. Probably I'd say one of the most popular conspiracy topics. Governments tend to be very heavily conspiracy laden, so we picked 3 topics related to government in some way or another.
What is this episode called?
This episode is called Executive Command. And so we're going to be talking about 3 topics, starting right off. And see, the interesting thing about these particular conspiracies is they're all real. Like, these are real things that happen.
They're actual organizations or groups or things that do exist.
But, you know, what happened around these kind of gets lost in the...
Dude, I couldn't believe how far this fell from, like, researching something into just, like, okay, just no one actually knows what they do, so they just make stuff up.
Yeah. I mean,
it's unreal.
So this episode, I didn't have as much prep time as I would have liked. We only did, like, 2 days of this, so we spent a shit ton of time looking for soy stuff. We completely failed, and then we pivoted, for me, too late, so I have some cursory stuff. But Matt's gonna be which they sound similar, you know.
Not my name.
It's one T. Matt will be the source of a lot of more information than I will this time.
I wish you didn't say that, but that's fine.
What?
Nothing.
Well,
that's a lot of pressure.
No, I mean, I know some stuff. I'll be able to contribute, but I feel like I read a lot, but it's a lot to maintain. Yes. So we're gonna start it right off with topic 1, which is Project MK Ultra,
which a real thing happened in the
60s and 70s,
where it's basically a government trying to figure out how to control people's minds through drugs, and other things.
Okay. So here's what the Wikipedia entry says. Well, the operation was officially sanctioned in 1953, reduced in scope in 1964, further curtailed in 1967, and officially halted in 1973. That's the timeline that this was active.
Yeah, well.
So, MK Ultra, also called the CIA Mind Control Program, is the code name given to a program of experiments on human subjects that were designed and undertaken by the United States Central Intelligence Agency, and which were illegal at the time. Experiments on humans were intended to identify and develop drugs and procedures to be used in interrogations in order to weaken the individual and force confession through mind control. The project was organized through the Office of Scientific Intelligence, which seriously sounds fake to me, of the CIA, and coordinated with the U.S. Army Biological Warfare Labs. So that's essentially what MK Ultra is and really was. Like, that is a real thing. That is
what it did.
And it's a mess. The history of this is that's mostly what I have about MK Ultra. Everything I was reading is just depressing facts about what happened to people.
It's brutal.
People died. And, you know, honestly, so I feel like there were conspiracy people before. But I feel like in the 60s and 70s, it really kicked off because this really happened. Like, knowing about this is enough.
They stole people or bought people.
I mean, they tricked them. Like, I was reading about how the CIA started government-funded brothels. They would bring people in and then drug them and then just start experimenting on them. And, you know, you're not going to say anything because you were going to a brothel. So, like, that's... Like, you're, like, extorting people to be scientific experiments. It's really crazy. Like, and so this stuff happening and then it coming to light it came to light in, I think, 74 and officially was, like, recognized in 77. That, I mean, can you imagine, like, that's like a faith-shattering thing to learn. And then you're like, what else were they doing? This is, like, almost them doing this almost opens up a pit to bring tons more people into conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
So this is a pretty big deal. Like, MK Ultra is big in a lot of ways.
Well, one of my favorite things about it is because what they did was, like, it was they were trying to find the truth serum.
Yeah.
And they tried I think it was mushrooms first, and that's actually where, like, that's how they figured out what psilocybin is. Like, the CIA figured out psilocybin is what magic mushrooms is and what the drug that fucks your brain up.
What makes you hallucinate?
Yeah, I listened to an interview with one of the guys it was a guy who worked, he didn't work for MK Ultra, but he was, like, a researcher that did, like, he was like, I'm pretty sure what they were doing was part of this or whatever. And he was explaining how, like, he was like, yeah, we didn't know, like, magic mushrooms were a myth as far as, like, the government agencies were concerned, and then they studied it, and then they, like, you know, they figured out what psilocybin is, but they were like, it doesn't work. It didn't do what they wanted.
Yeah, I mean, like
it makes you susceptible, but not in a way that was beneficial.
Yeah, it seems like what they were really trying for was to find drugs that would basically make you just start saying everything that's true.
Yeah.
But what they actually kind of found, the two that they focused on, they started with psilocybin, and then they moved to LSD. And those two drugs are, I mean, they're just like, they're almost mind openers. They just like, you're like,
yeah.
So you're almost like freeing people's minds, and then like.
But then they tortured.
Then they tortured the hell out of them.
Yeah, the part of it was torture.
So it's unreal. Like some of the stuff that they did to these people is just like.
I forget his name. I watched an interview with a guy who he was in the army and he went to Vietnam, and when he came back, he was like put in a program where they just forced him to. They just dosed him with LSD without telling him.
Yeah.
And kept him in this room, and they
That's
did
gotta
a
be
whole bunch
nuts.
of stuff, and he is like completely paranoid, and like he started crying in the interview when the guy was just like, so what was it like at all? And he was just like, he just like burst into tears crying, and it was like, hold on, he was like, he had to fight through it. He was like, I can talk about this, I can talk about it. And I was like, to me, I was just like, I mean, you just did acid.
Yeah. I mean,
I know you didn't know what was happening.
I mean, I guess like if reality starts like melting around you or whatever, and you're not prepared in any way, shape, or form, like you, I don't know how that would really affect somebody who like, because like it wasn't like acid wasn't like a thing, you know? They were just like this was brand new, and they're like, here, try this thing. Some scientists made it, and they didn't even do that. They just like give that guy this thing. Scientists made it, and then this man's having stuff happen to him that. Like nobody's ever had happen to him before. That's got to be insane. Like
I forget what it was. So like LSD wasn't developed by the government, I don't think, but they like found out about it and started making it kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I listened to this guy was talking about how there was like somebody made like 1 million hits of acid or whatever.
Yeah.
And they were gonna put them out there. But it wasn't illegal. Like these people were selling it. They were like, we've made this much of this thing. We're gonna sell it. And the government bought it up, but then they released this like statement that said the guy made a miscalculation and he was off by 1 million of a degree or something. They were like, it's actually, he thought it was like he was measuring in kilos when it was actually milligrams.
Okay.
So you're off by like a magnitude of like I think 100,000 or 1 million or something like
that.
And that was like them just buying all this acid and then lying and being like, oh, we only bought some.
Yeah, we only bought bought one and said it was 1 million. Yeah.
Like a lot, which was really funny. But I told you, a lot of what I listened to was there's a woman, her name's Kathy O'Brien. The funniest thing about this is that they don't, okay, so Kathy O'Brien, her parents were both sexually abused as children. So then they were sexually abusing her as a child, like immediately, apparently. This is the stuff that's like depressing because the woman's talking about this and she's like, yeah, my dad basically said he's like transplanted like his penis instead of my mom's nipple when I was hungry and stuff like that. And you're like, dude, what? God damn it. And then, but apparently she's like, she explains how like being sexually abused before the age of 5 does this thing to you mentally where the way the human brain works is since it hasn't finished developing when you have that much trauma with something you can't parse because you don't know what's happening but like you feel wrong kind of thing, it like compartmentalizes it in a way where when you do it before your age of 5 you essentially like wall off a section of your brain to put stuff in. But because of the way your alertness is when you are traumatized, you basically develop a photographic memory of trauma. But you seal it away so you can't remember it. And she talked about how, like, you know, she's like, I don't remember anything. Like, when I heard my dad's zipper unzip, I don't remember anything after that. Yeah. Until it was over. Yeah. Kind of thing. Yeah. And basically what she's saying is that the government, the brainwashing, like, portion of the government research was they figured out that those types of people are the easiest to influence. Okay, yeah. And she was sold. She says that her father sold her to the CIA when she was 6 for a government contract to create camshafts for army vehicles and he became like a millionaire.
Oh.
But she was then sold into slavery
Yeah.
as a child, and was like, then she starts going into like, it's like way bigger. Like the MK Ultra thing sucks, but everything she talked about was like insane. She was like, yeah, so Democrats and Republicans aren't real, because she was like, okay, the way they did it, guys, is complicated. Sorry, I'm jumping around. So she would like lock stuff away when she's traumatized.
Yeah.
And then what they would do is they did like blood rite rituals and weird occult stuff to her because it was so abnormal. It wasn't that they believed in it.
It was just because it was
so
weird.
So weird that it would access that part of her brain. And they retrained what triggers it. And so she was triggered by like body horror stuff.
Oh man.
And she explains that like basically they fuck your brain up to the point where they trigger you. They find that they edit so you can be triggered enough that they can essentially just turn you off.
Jesus.
And then fill you with information, and then you spout that when you're turned off again to whoever you're sent to. So she would like, she talked about how like the president of Mexico and the vice president of Mexico like raped her and stuff. Like, we're not raped her. I mean, it was all quote unquote consensual because she was just being prostituted by the government.
Yeah.
And in the process, like they would have sex with her and then give her information. And then she would go back somewhere and then they would get it from her.
I mean, with information.
And then that was it.
Dude.
Like, the weird thing about this is she never discusses what happened in between doing stuff, which is really strange because she talks about how the country music was a front for cocaine trafficking by Bill Clinton. And she was like, oh, I never had much sex with him. He isn't really very interested in women.
Dude, what is this?
Like, she said she had sex with Gerald Ford had sex with her when she was like 10 or something. Who else? It was like Bill Clinton, Gerald Ford. Damn it, I can't remember. It's a laundry list of people. Like Pierre Trudeau, the previous prime minister of Canada. She mentioned him. She mentioned the president and vice president of Mexico. It was like all these people that would, and the way she remembered all this stuff. So this is insane. I don't understand. She had a child.
Yeah.
If she doesn't know who, she never talks about who the child's father is or like when it happened exactly. She just goes, I had a child. And who was her handler? It was the Senator Byrd from West Virginia.
Yeah.
Was like the guy who had her for a very long time. Like, she was being trained by the government and then she was given to an official as a caretaker, and he just had her and then he would send her to do things and whatnot. And she had a child who then immediately went into the program because she didn't exist.
Yeah.
On paper, essentially, because she wasn't real as far as most people were concerned.
Yeah.
Like, she didn't exist. So then they took her child, and she said NASA was part of brainwashing her child because she was like, they did the same things they did to me, but then they also used, like, NASA scientists did sonic brainwashing techniques on her that are different. And dude, her daughter's in a hospital in Tennessee currently. Well, I don't know. Yeah, currently, I think, still. Because she almost, like, them trying to deprogram her almost killed her. Where they part of their thing is the woman, all right, they keep saying they. She gets saved by a guy named Mark Phillips, who worked for the CIA, and he was supposed to kill her because when these slaves became 30, they were worthless because they weren't good for sex anymore. So they just killed them. And this guy instead saved them. He was supposed to go kill them, but he took them away.
How?
And I'm like, wait, where were you? Like, they don't explain like where she was that he could come and take her and her daughter away when they were both like slaves, essentially. And it is weird things like that. But then, and he like rehabilitated her and taught her how to remember things and like cope with it and whatnot. And then the two of them basically toured the country as whistleblowers for MK Ultra, and they tried to sue the government over it.
Yeah.
But they got actual stuff. The guy was like, yeah, I know a lot of people in the government. They helped us, but they couldn't do it officially. But I got all these paperwork, and I got enough real things to take it to court. So they went to court, and the government showed up. So a representative of the government showed up and was like, under the National Security Act of 1944, you are not allowed to prosecute any of this or have any of this heard in a court of law. And they shut it down immediately.
That's insane.
And we're like, and it was this weird stalemate of, they're like, you're not allowed to talk about that because we're not going to let you, and we're not going to put it in any court system anywhere in the city or in the country.
Yeah.
But we're also not going to go after you because the judge was like, if anyone does anything to them, then you're basically approving it. So they aren't allowed to be arrested for what they're doing, but they also aren't allowed to prosecute the people who did the wrongs that they can prove. So they were allowed, and they were also not allowed to be on any major media source ever. So they toured the country for 25 years.
Holy crap.
They got married, I think. They were married eventually, but they toured the country 25 years doing small seminars. And the Mark Phillips guy talked about how, like, when they first started doing it, they went through, like, legitimate venues.
Yeah.
But every time they went through a legitimate venue, there was some sort of problem with their system and no one could buy tickets.
Oh, man.
And he was like, after the 5th time that happened, we never did that anymore. So I told you I watched one of their lectures. I watched 2 of their lectures.
Roseanne was one.
Yeah. One of them was, she got saved in 1988. So the first one I watched was in 1994, like after she had been deprogrammed and all this court stuff happened. I watched one in 1988 and then one in 2007 or 8. I think it's 7. No. It was 2010. 2010, I think. And it was in like a church. The first one was in like a convention center.
Yeah. And
there was a lot of people. The later one is in a church. There's not many people there.
Yeah.
But Roseanne was one of the guest speakers. It was Roseanne, Mark Phillips, and Kathy O'Brien. And the weird thing about their seminars, like I had to listen to interviews with them. Their seminars is almost like self-help versus
information.
We're trying to crack something open.
Yeah, yeah.
And the weirdest thing is in the 1988 one, they're making jokes about what happened. Weird ones. Like he comes out and he goes, like Mark Phillips' introduction to explaining what happened was like, part of it he said, he was like, myself and Miss O'Brien represent the 2 oldest professions in history.
Oh.
And he makes like this joke about like they argue over which one's older, prostitution or spying. And then some guy in the crowd goes, he was like, we can't decide which one came first. And he goes, some guy in the crowd goes, ladies always goes first. And like everybody laughs. And you're like,
that's weird.
You're introing a woman who was forced to be a prostitute through fucking abuse, torture, and drug use.
Government funded.
And you're laughing about it. It was, I don't know. It struck me really strange because I watched the one from 2010 first.
Yeah.
And it was much more like solemn and serious. And they were like trying to help people who have been brainwashed. And the first one was like, they're goofing around.
That's so
making
weird.
jokes, but then being like, yeah, get up in arms because the government's doing this. It's super weird. Oh, but her daughter, like, so they think that since he helped deprogram her, he then tried to help deprogram her daughter after her. Like, once they had success, they tried to help her daughter. And because they used the NASA sonic brainwashing techniques, they think that they embedded some sort of fail-safe program
that shuts her down.
If you try to get deprogrammed, so for spies, it would be like if your spy get caught and they try to deprogram them, they'll just have a heart attack and die, and they will give no information. And that's what happened to her daughter. And her daughter, ever since that happened, has been in a like a government-funded hospital in Tennessee, and they're not allowed to see her. no, she's not allowed to leave. She's no longer her daughter. Like, they don't have any rights to her anymore.
What the hell?
Yeah, she went to this hospital, and then they were like, we have her now. Thanks. And she's been in there for like 15 years or something. Probably longer at this point. Mark Phillips died, I think, 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
How much of this is verifiable? Like,
they say all of it. They're like, we have documents to prove all this stuff. And they have... everything they try to do to get their daughter back or process anything in a court of law is met with it's that 1944 National Security Act. There's something in there that says that you're not allowed. We're not going to allow you.
That's like
to
shocking.
take this any farther because it's true, because it's all real.
Yeah.
I mean, and they're like, yes, this is in place so that you can't prove that we did this to you.
That is, I mean, that's
because the thing in 1944, part of it was they talked about how, like, during World War II, they were pretty sure the Germans and Russians had this type of technology.
Well, I mean,
like, they were working on it, so they were trying to figure it out back then because they, I guess, caught Russian spies and had a lot of trouble getting shit out of them or something. But like that, like, it started way before that. Like, them trying to find a truth drug started in World War II, I think.
Yeah. I mean, well, actually, they talk about how a lot of this stuff, like, so basically one of the things that people believe succeeded this was Project Monarch, which is like a more brutal version of this. It's like, it's insane. And they reference Mengele, the Nazi scientist. They're like, I mean, like, we don't...
They mentioned Himmler a lot in the stuff I listened to.
Yeah, it's like, it's the people you don't want to mention seem to get mentioned all the time about this stuff. Yep. This is like nightmarish shit. So...
Oh, that was the one thing. She got trauma to, like, her trauma trigger was, like, body horror and things like that. And she said that there was a point where she was trafficking cocaine for Bill Clinton by touring with a country music band. And her handler was, what was his name? I want to say Dewey Cox. It was something. It was something Cox, Wayne Cox maybe.
Yeah.
And he was a musician for a band, and he was her caretaker, and he would murder people on the road in front of her, like, multiple times. And she said at one point he kept a severed hand in a cooler just to show it to her.
So, like,
to remind her,
like,
to be like, yeah, this is, you know where you are and what's happening.
So here I have a list of the methods. This is for Monarch, and it is 30 different things that they do. But and I won't list all of them. But this is Monarch and Ultra are basically the same the two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
So this is pretty much probably something that they would do in other ones. Here's a few. It says the victim or survivor is called a slave by the programmer/handler, who in turn is perceived as a master or god. About 75% of these are female.
Yes. She said that they present themselves as gods, and she actually had I think somebody took her to, like, I think it was Gerald Ford took her to, like, a secret bunker and showed her a spy plane, like the black, I forget what they're called, the F-1 bombers, or no.
The stealth bomber.
Yeah, the stealth bomber.
Yeah.
It was one of those, like, an early version of it, and she was like, it looked like a spaceship to me, and he told me that he was an alien. Like, and they use that as a way to then, like, make you feel even more powerless because you're this thing that's beyond the scope of your reality.
Yeah, so
they're not humans that are doing this to you. They are, like, these things you cannot even fathom. And you can do nothing to stop them from doing this.
And what you said earlier, this is actually, it says Monarch handlers seek the compartmentalization of their subject's psyche in multiple and separate alter personas using trauma to cause disassociation, which is pretty much what you said. Like, that's what this woman did. So here's a partial list of the torture. This is partial. It's 30 of them. So we have confinement in cages, coffins, burial, often with an air tube or for oxygen just to completely lock you away, abuse and torture, near drowning, skinning. It says only the top layers of skin are removed and victims who are intended to survive, which is just crazy. Electric shock, forced ingestion of offensive bodily fluids and matter, such as urine, feces, blood, or flesh.
Ugh. Do they liquefy the flesh?
I don't know, man. It's just disgusting. Sleep deprivation, compression with weights, sensory deprivation, drugs to create illusions, confusion, amnesia, often given by injection or intravenously. Feeding you toxic chemicals. Your limbs are dislocated. Application of snakes, spiders, maggots, rats, and other animals to induce fear and disgust. Forced participation in slavery. Abuse to become pregnant. This is insane. And when I first read it, I didn't believe it, but then you have almost lended credence to this. It's the fetus is then aborted for ritual use, or the baby is taken for sacrifice or enslavement.
Yep.
Spiritual abuse, desecration of Judeo-Christian beliefs and forms of worship, the Satan stuff.
Oh, she also mentioned that kind of stuff, like the church. Fuck. I can't remember.
Harm or threats of harm to family, friends, loved ones, pets, and other victims to force compliance. And the list goes on. There are so many crazy-ass things that people did to people to sort of just discover where the breaking point was. That was basically the entire point of this, is just like find out where you stop being a human and you can basically revert into something that is programmable.
Yeah.
And that is a real messed up nightmare. So
and it's real though, and the weird thing about it is if you don't research the actual program and you just type MK Ultra into YouTube or something, what you're met with is the most asinine shit on earth where they're like, this is proof of brainwashing, and it's just montages of like newscasters staring blankly because they don't think a camera's on.
Yeah, or their teleprompter broke or something.
Yeah, or like a pop star who's just on drugs because they're a pop star and they do drugs for fun, being weird on a live TV performance or interview or something. And it's just like, that's not brainwashing. You wouldn't even be able to tell a person that was actually brainwashed because they're brainwashed. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they're brainwashed to be normal.
Yeah, they wouldn't appear like
fine.
a brainwashed. Yeah, they're not just going to start acting weird until their
Unless
trigger
you cut
happens.
somebody's head off in front of them, or like burn a baby alive, or boil somebody's grandmother in front of them.
Whatever their specific trigger is, until you do that, they're going to appear normal.
Yeah, and it's like, but everybody's just like, no, everybody's brainwashed and MK Ultra this, and it's like,
well, people
I don't know,
think,
it's just like ridiculous.
People think there are like hordes of people who are
brainwashed.
I mean,
every celebrity on Earth is apparently MK Ultra.
Yeah, they're everybody. They're all ready to be deprogrammed and set to whatever. It's actually kind of interesting. It's
diminishing of what they actually did.
Yeah.
To be like, they programmed this guy to be famous and popular. It's like, no, they program people and turn them into slaves.
Yeah.
100% of the time, slave.
It was
that
not to be like,
exist.
Go out and become a pop star.
It's like, no, go get fucked by people I need to get information out of, and then bring it back to me.
Some sort of
13-year-old
foreign
girl
national
that I bought from their father.
Yeah. It's like,
it's sick.
It's funny.
Sick.
It's funny how close we were to never getting this, because after the Nixon debacle, the director of the CIA at the time in '73 was like, burn it all, and they burned something like 98% of all the documents involved with MK Ultra. And the only reason we got the 20,000 documents we got is because they were misfiled. And during a Freedom of Information Act, somebody found them. So we almost got nothing because they successfully destroyed records of this in '73. Like it almost never happened. Like we would have never known this would happen. And we'd be talking about that woman like she was a lunatic and none of this was like that never would have happened. But we can now, because these exist, even though they're heavily redacted, it's true. Like, this stuff is real. And then, so, it's kind of funny. This almost isn't, like, we barely talked about a conspiracy. This really happened.
No, it's not a conspiracy. The conspiracy aspect of this is uninteresting because it's people who just, like, didn't do any looking into it and were like, it means brainwashing.
It means brainwashing.
So I know what brainwashing means and I know how to look for it. And it's like, no, it's way more involved than that. And it's real and actually occurred.
And like, super disturbing.
And
like,
it's incredibly disturbing.
Well, this is like actual nightmares that the government did to its citizens.
There was one thing that I saw where they were implying, basically, they said that the Manson family was part of it, and they were created on purpose, and that when Squeaky Fromme tried to shoot Ronald, was it no, Eisenhower? Who did she shoot? She took a pot shot at a presidential candidate.
Yeah.
No, I can't remember who it is. It was
I don't
fucking
know.
ridiculous. But it was whenever, like that was part. They were explaining that was part of it because they were trying to kill whoever that was so that Rockefeller became president. But because she failed, he didn't. Because the only way he was going to win was if the other guy was killed, and she fucked it up.
You know, it's funny how often Rockefeller's going to come up throughout this.
Yep. That's why I thought I'd mention that.
Yeah,
one.
yeah, that is interesting.
There are things that tie all three of these together.
Yeah, and okay. So that's the end of MK Ultra.
Yeah.
I swear
It's real.
That's the most
Sucks.
depressing one we're going to deal with today.
Sucks. The other two I love.
Yeah, that one's...
I'm actually proponents of the next two.
Yeah, I mean, they're fine.
They're
but
fine.
This one is a dark, weird chapter of
good.
American history, and I mean, hopefully that never happens or isn't happening anymore. But God only knows. It's like they wouldn't tell us that, so they almost didn't tell us this.
Oh, to segue into the next section, in an interview with Mark Phillips, he's taking Q&As afterwards, and I told you about this where he's taking Q&As, and then somebody asks him about HARP.
HARP?
And he goes, he says, he's like, you're not asking the right questions. He was like, when they dismantled HARP, people were asking what they were doing with it, and they should have been asking, what do they have now?
Yeah, what did they replace it with?
Well, what did they replace HARP with?
Which is a great question. I mean, it's because that's what my dad always told me when I was growing up. He's like, if they're showing you the stealth bomber now, that's because what replaced the stealth bomber is infinitely cooler. He's like, whatever they're showing you is like the chaff. So it's so old by that point that they're just like, show it to the public. Who cares? So it's interesting. So the next topic is HARP, or High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. Auroral. Sorry, I did say oral. Shit. Auroral.
Auroral. That's a great word.
It is. So here's the Wikipedia quick definition. The High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, HARP, was initiated as an ionospheric research program jointly funded by the U.S. Air Force, U.S. Navy, the University of Alaska at Fairbanks, and the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, the people who do all the crazy weird shit with the government. It was designed and built by BAE Advanced Technologies. Its original purpose was to analyze the ionosphere and investigate the potential for developing ionospheric enhancement technology for radio communications and surveillance. As a university-owned facility, HARP is a high-power, high-frequency transmitter used to study the ionosphere. I love this thing. This thing is actually really cool.
Yeah, they took it apart. But there's like 10 of them.
Yeah.
Just the one in Alaska, the HARP one. These things exist all over the country. All over the world in other countries. But the one in Alaska that was called HARP was the strongest.
Yeah.
And it was directional. It was the first one to be directional. They built like a satellite array that allowed them to not just shoot the part. Basically what it did, the high frequency altitude auroral thing, they were shooting concentrated energy at the ionosphere, because that's what basically all our communications, everything bounces. It's like a ceiling that you send a signal up, it bounces off that, it comes back down. And they were trying to figure out ways to either bounce more things, bounce things farther.
Yeah, basically ELFs are extremely low frequencies, more easily propagate through water, and they're used for communicating with submarines operating beneath the world's oceans. So the idea behind this was to turn the atmosphere into an ELF transmitter.
Yeah.
And it works. You can do that. And that's like HARP is actually really awesome.
Gangbusters, it works.
Yeah, it's so cool that you can just like use the natural atmosphere. Like it saves so much time and effort. It says not having to build a conventional antenna to do this, which would have been 400 miles of utility poles supporting 800 miles of wire. And instead using science to create the equivalent of that just out of the air is insane. It's great because it works, and it's great because it saves money. Mm-hmm. And
it completely changed the way, like, submarines talk to each other.
Yeah.
Finding oil, it improved like finding anything in the earth.
Yeah,
Literally anything. It can find missile silos in other countries. It can tell you the difference between is that natural gas or oil under there.
Yeah.
That we found. Like they can figure that out just by blasting the
hitting it with HAARP.
ionosphere.
And
it's fucking awesome.
And so it was decommissioned. I think, well, you know the date more than I would.
I don't remember exactly when. It would have been 2008 or 10, somewhere around there.
I think it says 2007. It says in 2014 it was announced that HAARP program would be permanently shut down later that year. So 2014, up till then it was still operating.
But they were taking it apart. They were like winding down.
It was built in '93, so it had a good 21 years of runtime, which is pretty cool.
The one thing about it, so everything we just said is cool, and it doesn't sound like conspiracy theory area at all.
This just seems like something neat.
Yeah, it is. It's very cool. Like, they figured out how to shoot, like, stuff into the ionosphere, let it travel around the world, and then fall back out. And then come back and
the same way. It's incredible.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing.
That seems like magic. It's, like, so far advanced.
But the conspiracy stuff is for morons, dude. Like, the conspiracy around HAARP is first they say that it controls the weather.
It weaponizes weather.
They think they can weaponize weather, and the way where that comes from is basically what they're doing when they use it. The other facilities aren't as directional as this one, so the directionality of HAARP allowed it to be more concentrated. So they could basically, that huge array of stuff was corkscrewing. Like they used some kind of, I'm not a physicist. They used the way they shoot up in the air, and all those antennas essentially corkscrewed and spun together and wound themselves together. Yeah. Like the frequencies, like a helix, and then it went all the way up and concentrated so that it was like a column. Yeah. 30 miles wide or something like that. That hits the ionosphere and moves it. It pushes it out. Was it up to? I think it was 200 miles. Like it would be. I think the ionosphere is like 80 miles. It's 70 miles above the Earth's surface, I think, and then they were pushing it out to 200. Jesus. For periods of time, and then letting it drop back down, and they were doing it. They don't really explain why they were doing it. They explain that they can do it.
We could totally just blast the shit out of the ionosphere.
Which is what lends to the conspiracy part, because they're saying, like, people are like, it was being developed as a weapon to, some people say it was to knock other people's satellites out of the sky, because if a satellite was cruising above the ionosphere and you just suddenly shot it out, it would smash into all this stuff that it isn't designed to have to go through and be ruined. But there is also the legit reason for doing it, I just remembered, is it's for stopping meteorites and asteroids. Because when a meteorite or an asteroid, well, they changed the name, right? Because when it goes through, it changes. But yeah. So an asteroid would hit the ionosphere and then go through our atmosphere and burn up. Yeah. But this was like a way to battle bigger asteroids that they thought they would get through by extending our atmosphere 200 miles.
Which
like essentially
gives it more time to burn up.
Yes, more space for it to be destroyed in, which is like kind of genius.
This whole thing
insane. It's
is
awesome.
Just such good, awesome science.
They figured out how to move the Earth's magnetic field to eat asteroids. That's amazing. Dude. But then there's morons out there who use crystals on their wrists to feel better in the morning, and they're like, they're affecting my body's magnetic field, and that's brainwashing and mind control. They think it's mind control. They think it can control people's minds. When at best, it can make you feel uncomfortable.
There are people...
That's it. It makes you feel uneasy.
There are people who believe that every antenna is tied to HAARP. Like every car antennas, roof antennas, all of them are just HAARP dongles. And like it's They're just always bombarding us with all this mind control and weather control.
I watched
seem
a
to be
video called Holes in Heaven,
Ooh.
where I watched fucking geode worshipping weirdos talk about how we're punching holes in the atmosphere and affecting their fucking chi
chakras and my sky chakra.
It was so stupid. I was like, God, I hate all of you people.
You know what's like so. It's God. That is so. Yeah, you're totally right. Like the kind of people who resist this tend to be the.
Well, the whole controlling the weather thing, like it can't.
Yeah,
it literally.
Dude, that's like outside
weather.
the ability of natural science. Like it's so you can't just fire a storm at somebody.
Like at most, what they haven't apparently studied enough, what the scientists are like, it doesn't matter, is people say if you push the ionosphere up 200 miles, that the atmosphere rushes in to fill it.
Yeah.
And it's affecting like weather patterns. And it's like it's a 30-foot column.
Yeah, it's
like
like
a 30-mile column out of thousands of miles. Like there's air everywhere. That argument just seems real whack because it also doesn't push it out for that long.
Yeah, it's
not
just
like
keeping it out there for years. It's just yeah.
But people are like, no, it's causing weird weather and all this other shit. And the one scientist was like, in the interview I listened to, he was like, if you put your hand in a cup of water, you displace the water. The water doesn't go out of its mind trying to figure out what to do. You know, he was just like, it just fills the space. Like
it's not like exploding.
Yeah, it's not like the ionosphere shoots up and then a hurricane appears in where it was. Like it's just like, yeah, air filled it up.
I feel like this is very similar to those to people who don't like the Large Hadron Collider.
Yes.
It's
yes,
just
they don't understand what they're trying to do.
Like,
so
I don't understand science. Like that one woman who tried to sue them because she thought it was going to end the world. They're like, do you understand how this works? It doesn't just end the world. Nobody wants that. Where's the benefit?
I know. The people they're trying to create a black hole on Earth. It's like, why would anyone want that? No one wants that.
Finally, somebody's doing it. They always stop just shy of questioning what the purpose of what they think is happening.
They're just like, oh, it sounds nefarious, and let me come to my own
and everybody's
conclusion.
a James Bond villain except for me. So it's
the funniest fucking thing about HAARP. I watched this documentary on like an hour-long thing this guy made, where I forget the guy's name. I watched too many videos in the last 3 days to remember everybody's name. But he was interviewing like the guy who first was like, oh, this is a bad thing, this HAARP thing. And he's interviewing him. And then he goes, hey, every year HAARP had an open house where anyone on Earth can just go in and walk around the whole fucking place. And everybody talks about it like, it's secret government. What do we know? We don't know it. You can just go there and talk to them. And the guy was like, yeah, you can come. He was like, we do this every year to try to stop people from thinking these things. And he goes, so they have an open house to the guy who started saying HAARP is a bad thing. And he goes, oh yeah, they do it every year. And he goes, well, have you ever gone? He goes, no, why would I go? And the guy was like, the interview was like, it's not like you're going to lose knowledge by walking in the facility. Like, you can only gain knowledge. Why wouldn't you go in? And he's like, because I don't trust them. And then he goes in, and the rest of the video was him talking to knowledgeable scientists who are normal human beings who are trying to be like, yeah, we're not evil. We're scientists.
We're not doing anything. A way to communicate easier and burn up asteroids.
It's unreal, man.
Whew.
It's so good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Why don't you go? No, fuck that.
No, what?
Why would I go to the place I think is evil
to learn
what they actually do when I can just sit here and speculate from across the
That's way less interesting.
Oh, this is my whole life. I write books about this. If I found I was wrong, I'd have to change everything.
I mean, I can't go back. I'm way too dedicated at this point.
I'm in. I'm fully in. But that made me laugh out loud.
Yeah.
The interview with that guy particularly, when he was just like, yeah, we do this to stop people from thinking these things. And then that guy's like, oh, yeah, fuck, I'm not going in there.
No way.
Dude, trick me into getting in there.
I love that. They'll
brainwash me with all the antennas. One of the legitimate concerns that people have is not even a conspiracy theory. It's that because of the way they can shoot out, like they send out those waves and then they come back through the pattern, there's so much energy trapped in the ionosphere. There's that if something were to go wrong where they pulled too much back, because they're creating pathways.
Yeah.
Like the concern would be that eventually there would be like this release of energy that would be like they all say, multiple people have said it, so somebody must have done some math somewhere, but they said it would be lightning. It would be basically lightning. Thousands of lightning bolts would strike the HARP facility thousands of times in 3 seconds, and each lightning bolt would be 100 times more powerful than any recorded lightning bolt we've ever experienced.
So it would basically just destroy HARP.
It was like it would absolutely eviscerate the entire area that the signal was coming from.
Which
is also like, okay,
but that's HARP's problem.
That's their problem. Yeah. That's bad for them. Like that's also it's not a weapon. Like if it was a weapon, it's a weapon against you for using it.
Yeah, that would happen one time, and then it would never happen again, because nobody wants to be struck by a billion hyper-powered lightning bolts.
Although the conspiracy stuff is crazy, because I watched this one guy explain that like the Earth. It was a guy. It's an American guy in Japan. I watched a couple of his videos. He seems very strange.
Okay.
Very strange man. But he basically was like, I had information that something was going to happen to the Fukushima thing 2 days before the earthquake happened. And then the earthquake happened, and there's footage of... So HARP, the auroral part of HARP is like Aurora Borealis or Aurora Antarcticus or whatever.
Yeah.
They are solar winds smashing against the ionosphere, creating light in the exchange of energy. And HARP does the same thing. So when they fire it, it does do that. It creates colors in the sky.
Okay.
Where it hits the ionosphere.
Yeah.
It changes the color of it. People believe there's footage of strange clouds. There's basically a cloud that was colored of a rainbow. Like the spectrum of a rainbow, but it was in a cloud.
That's called that actually.
It was right above like the site of where the earthquakes were, which was also directly where the power plant was. And the guy was like, "This was an attack by HARP on Japan because of that cloud, the color discoloration, and the fact that the epicenter was directly above the thing." And like the credence to that would be like the way that they use the ELFs to find oil and stuff.
Yeah.
The best explanation I got, this most succinct, was firing those into the ground is like if the earth had, basically if you took a piano and the earth's crust, every string was a layer of the crust.
Yeah.
You fire those in the ground, certain strings start vibrating.
Okay.
And then from the way they vibrate, you can tell what they are and where they are and how deep they are.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you, like, the one guy that was the conspiracy about it was like, he's like, I used to do this. I've found 29 wells with a 100% accuracy using a 31-watt ELF machine, firing it directly in a rock. And he was like, they're using 1 gigawatt ELFs. Like, that's how much power is in those waveforms.
Yeah.
And he's like, if you fired that into the ground, you could make things vibrate so violently that you would cause an earthquake. And also Tesla, in his like notes and things, one of the things he claimed he could do
is create the little earthquake machine.
Oh, well, he straight up said he could split the earth in half.
Oh, okay.
He was like, you could just split the earth in half if you wanted to. It was one of his things. And they say that was part of it. Like, he figured out the ionosphere stuff, and he understood that, and that you could use it to make earthquakes or destroy the earth. So it's just like, I think that's what the conspiracy of these things, these real things are, is that people are just like, well, what if you could? And it's all like, yeah, but they're scientists who don't want to die. Like,
it's like, you know
nobody's like, hey, this experiment may split the earth in half. Should we go forward? No one is saying yes.
It's like all the people.
What I mean?
It's like all the people in the 50s. All like the pop culture in the 50s about radiation. Like they thought it was going to turn all the animals huge.
Yes.
They thought it was going to do this, and then so it doesn't.
It's going to melt you into a monster. It's like, no, it'll just melt you.
It'll just
and
kill
then
you.
You'll be dead.
You get hyper cancer and then you die. And that's really so. It's people without all the information making pop culture leaps.
Yes.
But they're like applying it to real life. Like you just can't do that. Like it's wrong. Like that's just how it. I mean, you can be like, well, what if this happened? Like they thought that the A bomb when you detonated it would completely.
Oh, they thought that was going to set the atmosphere.
Yeah, they thought it was going to completely eliminate the atmosphere, and it didn't do that.
No.
So, it's like being like, well, it could, and then it doesn't, and you're just like, well, it still kind of could. Well, it kind of doesn't, man. It's just,
the scientific method. Yeah, I mean, you don't get to the point that you're doing something like HARP without everything lining up to say that it's safe to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're actually following the scientific method. Like, the government isn't hiring mad scientists. They're hiring real scientists.
That is not in their best interest.
Yeah, they're real scientists who are concerned with not killing themselves for the furthering of knowledge.
Yeah.
So, I just don't understand why people are...
Unless there's a moon base, man.
Unless there's a moon base, then split the earth in half from a remote...
from a remote moon base.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm fine with that.
So
HARP, good. They did a good thing.
Yeah.
There's also 5 of them in Russia, fucking 1 in Norway, 1 in France. They're all over the place. Everybody's doing this.
Yeah.
Because it's a legitimate field of study to further the development of human technology.
Yeah. And God forbid. So...
but there's this one guy talking about how like the location of HARP is equidistant from LA, Japan, and Norway for a very specific reason, because like they can
I feel like those 3 places have nothing in common. It's just like, hey, this place just happens to be the same distance from these 3 places.
I know.
Holy crap.
Wow. He was like, if you make HARP the North
it's
Pole
a pentagram.
of the Earth, it becomes an equidistant map between these, and you're just like, what are you doing?
Who cares?
What are you figuring out?
It's like there's no eureka moment. You're just saying stuff. I don't know.
Just its location is so suspect. It has to be evil. Don't you understand? That's the kind of shit that cracks me up. Where you're just like, what's the point of what you just said? You just made it seem like it's suspicious, but it is also just a fact that it's that distance from all those places.
Dude.
It's also where it is because it's the closest point to the ionosphere on Earth that the American government has access to. That's why it's where it is. That's why. That's the only reason why. It's because it's the closest they can get to it to set up their array.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Nefarious.
They're evil, and they're trying to brainwash us.
You know, did you ever see the movie Idle Hands?
Yeah.
You know the part when the warrior nun woman is in her van that she goes around in, and she marks down that there's a new murder, and then she makes a pentagram, but the cities don't actually make that pentagram. She just draws it on the map.
She draws it over it, yeah.
And you're
it's
just
that's what it is.
That's exactly what it is. She's just like, holy shit! But you could have drawn a pentagram out of any of these cities. It doesn't.
This is the finding triangles in pictures thing. I mean, it's just like you are making that up.
Yeah.
Your brain did that.
Yeah.
Love
All
it.
right. On to the third and final topic, which is this one.
This is the most baffling that anyone is like, why is this happening?
It is. This is the Trilateral Commission.
Yep.
So the Trilateral Commission, according to Wikipedia, is a non-governmental, non-partisan discussion group founded by David Rockefeller in July 1973 to foster closer cooperation among North America, Western Europe, and Japan. And that's it.
It was basically a group set up to figure out how to make sure business can be international without governments fucking it up.
Yeah. And
that's really all it is. It was like, we want to be able to do business with all the people of the world and share information and communicate and goods and all of that, but we don't want the government to fuck it up.
Pretty much. And so like it's based on this book that talks about a global economy, and it's basically like something like this. It basically postulates the concept of the Trilateral Commission, and it's like something like this would feasibly have to exist because
eventually
it just makes good business sense, and it's a good way to foster peace.
Yeah. Did you hear what we just said? Everybody's like, the Trilateral, they're taking over the country. They want to make a one world government.
Yeah, deep
and
state.
It's like, it's not deep state, and the one world government doesn't have to be a bad thing if it's based on peace and sharing of information. Like, why is that bad?
I mean, I'll never know.
That's the part that like frustrates me when I finally, like, I've heard of the Trilateral Commission, but I didn't look into it because I figured it was just like shadow government, deep state stuff, and I didn't feel like it. And then I look into it, and I'm like, this is good. Like, the concept of it was to set up a technocracy.
Yeah.
Which is where instead of having government leaders, you have, like, I don't know how to describe it, like developmental leaders that have a field. And those leaders are not voted on. They're just whoever is the fucking smartest person in that field.
Which, it's like this one makes so much sense. Like, just, like, across the board.
Yeah.
That it's so...
Hey, how about we just have one guy, like, one guy in charge of everyone that's smart about agriculture, just get together and figure out how to make sure everywhere on Earth can have food.
Yeah.
Evil!
It's like...
What?
What people believe is that the Trilateral Commission is installing politicians and things like that.
Yeah. Because, like, Bill Clinton, George Bush, like, everybody, there's so many people that are part of the Trilateral Commission that are now, like, presidents or senators or things like that.
And the Trilateral Commission also is pretty closely related to the Bilderberger.
Yes. Well,
that's actually where it was introduced.
Yes, that was where it was introduced.
And Bilderbergers are, just one of those other secret societies that are all out to destroy everything. These are rich people. like they're not... I just don't... If they're doing weird shit, it's almost... It's got to be ironic. Like, when you see them dress up as owls and shit, like, that one thing where I'm not sure where it is.
Bohemian Grove.
Yeah.
Bohemian Grove, yeah.
If you ever see somebody dress up like an owl and they're rich, it's a joke. They don't give a fuck. They are rich. They won. They beat the system. They are now the system. They can dress up like an owl all they want. It's like, I'm not sure where people think this goes. Like, what is the value in them doing this? And that's the thing.
Well, the value is world peace and one world government.
Well, no, I mean, like, what's the value in being nefarious with this power?
Yeah.
Like,
the only thing... See, I was thinking about it, and the way I thought about it was, all right, you have the Trilateral Commission. If your goal is, like, this one world technocratic government, other governments... Like, it's because humans are so tribal. We're not above, like, the tribalism thing, and that's why the internet doesn't work anymore. The internet is fucked up and broken. And it's because, like, we haven't, like, evolved mentally past, like, the tribalist, like, kind of thing where, like, where you live matters, or if you're a unicorn or not. Like, that kind of stuff still matters to us, and, like, national pride, all that stuff still matters.
Yeah.
So, like, if the Trilateral Commission is doing what they are doing for peace, you would sort of still need to be secretive to a level about it. Only because you can't just be like, oh, hey, I'm here, the guy who believes that we don't even need a government of our own anymore.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. You can't really do that.
People rail against...
Change.
Authority. They rail against authority and change. And this is basically authoritarian change.
Yeah.
So
you're going to have the masses think it's bad, and then the actual people in power who aren't down with it are going to think it's bad too.
Yeah.
But in fact, it's like the goal of it is that this, like, no more war. Everybody is fed. Everything, like, everywhere can be as prosperous as the most prosperous area on Earth.
Yeah.
The only reason that it isn't is because of war and our inability to communicate or share ideas and stuff. It's like, This is the worst. This is the worst conspiracy theory I've ever come across. Like, this is absolutely stupid. Because if they're actually doing what they're saying,
that's a good
then
thing.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, like, I mean, sure, they could be not doing what they're saying. That's entirely possible. But where, they're out to, if you're rich, okay, there's a great thing that I remember hearing somebody talk about. It was, one of the 80s hair metal bands. And somebody was talking to them about, are you putting secret messages from Satan in your things if you play them backwards? And they're like, no, if we did that, we'd be telling people to buy more records. And that there is everything you need to know about, like, that nobody's doing that. Yep. They all want to make more money. They all, so.
Yeah, it's weird when people are like, they're trying to kill us and wipe us out. It's like, no, these people with all the money just get more money the more of us there are. Why would getting rid of us benefit them at all? They already have all the money. All the money's already going to them. So the more people generating money is sending more money at them.
It
doesn't make any sense.
Like, I could see like light manipulation of people, like making them want to buy something.
Yes.
Making them want to, that makes sense to me. It makes sense to anyone with any kind of like standard thought process about how people function in a system that is a capitalistic society. The pursuit of money is all there
that
is.
Matters, yeah.
So that's what's driving these people.
Less
if Rockefeller
people doesn't make
it,
more money.
Rockefeller is making it. It's going to be about more money. He's Rockefeller. He's like, that's what he's known for. So it's, you know, it's.
Yeah, but they run the Bohemian Grove and the Skull and Bones. It's all part of that.
You know, man. Anybody.
You know what the best part about anybody who believes in Skull and Bones is just like. No one's jerking off on each other.
No.
No person who's already a millionaire is like, man, I'm going to let 30 people jerk off on me so I can hang out with more millionaires.
Yeah, no. That's never going to happen.
Yeah, that shit is just like so stupid.
That came from people who they're like, if I was a millionaire, I'd make sure everybody had to pass a test to hang out with me. Like, and just like theorizing that and then just blowing it into this insane thing. That's not how it works. Like, so it's funny. It's like I was reading this thing about classes and how the different classes completely are different. Like things that are common to you and me are completely not common to someone who is poorer than us. Mm-hmm. And people who are way richer than us have almost nothing in common with us. Their value systems are completely different.
Oh, yeah.
So we can't apply any of what our values are to them because they're monetarily so far much better than us that, you know, it's all about accumulating more wealth and just being better than everybody else. And, you know, that's fine. I don't care. You can think whatever you want, but you're probably not out to, unless you're like a murderer.
Yeah, you'd have to be a supervillain.
And I mean, I'm sure they exist. I'm sure there are those people out there.
But they're like drug lords. Like, you can be richer than anyone. Like, you can be richer than Steve Branson or whatever.
It's like,
and evil. You can still do that. You're just not going to own companies. You're going to own people in factories full of drugs. Like,
and the thing is, like, you.
But there's no conspiracy about them.
Yeah, like the funny thing
and they're actually killing us.
Yeah, exactly. Like those are the people we should be looking at. But it's like the people. It's like they're suspicious because they don't want people looking at them and they do things behind closed doors.
Yeah,
they can afford to do that.
They have hundreds of millions of dollars, and if they did things normally, people would ask them for things.
Yeah.
Or exploit them. Or fuck them over.
If you won the lottery, man, you'd be inundated with people who are begging you for money. If you are a millionaire, you want to hang out with other millionaires, so they don't do that. So nobody's like, hey, man, just wrecked my car. Could really use, you know, if somebody could give me a hand. You know, that would really be shitty to hang out with somebody like that. So you don't hang out with somebody like that. So that's to me was what all this is about. It's just about making money, fostering peace so that more people make more money, and then it's all about it's respect and money.
I feel like it's just as soon as you're like, oh, they're doing this secretly, you're like, it's evil.
It must be evil. Why else would they do it secretly?
What was the one I was listening to an interview with a guy, and he's like, so when George Bush got appointed like the head of the CIA after leaving the UN and joining the Trilateral Commission, you don't think he came in there with the ideals of the Trilateral Commission? That's what that was when I was like, this is complete. You are fucked. Your brain doesn't work anymore. Because you just told me what you can read what they are about. There's a book on it. That's what they base it on. And if those tenets you feel are evil, then your brain doesn't work.
Yeah, like
then you are in fact evil because you think good is evil.
Yeah, you think like fostering growth and prosperity is not something people would ever want.
Yeah, it doesn't. He's like, he's coming in there with the mentality of the Trilateral Commission, and I'm
the
sitting here
Trilateral
going
Commission
like, good.
It's
better than coming into it with the mentality of like nationalism, or you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Okay. Here's actually, I'm gonna read the quote to quote its founding declaration.
There we go.
Growing interdependence is a fact of life of the contemporary world. It transcends and influences national systems. While it is important to develop greater cooperation among all countries in the world, Japan, Western Europe, and North America, in view of their great weight in the world economy and their massive relationship with one another, bear a special responsibility for developing effective cooperation, both in their own interests and in those of the rest of the world. To be effective in meeting common problems, Japan, Western Europe, and North America will have to consult and cooperate more closely on a basis of equality to develop and carry out coordinated policies on matters affecting their common interests. Refrain from unilateral actions incompatible with their interdependence and from actions detrimental to other regions, and take advantage of existing international and regional organizations and further enhance their role. The Commission hopes to play a creative role as a channel of free exchange of opinions with other countries and regions. Further progress
evil!
Further progress of the developing countries and greater improvement of the East-West relationship will be a major concern. Dude,
evil.
Everything they just said is so, like, you'd be like, that's so noble.
Yes!
I mean, it's like, but...
They're trying to integrate everyone into a single...
But because they're rich...
Like, humanity...
You know,
no, because they're rich and they have to do it low key because you can't just overthrow a government. You know what I mean? Like, it's something that has to eventually work out. And like, you have to build towards this. And if you start by saying we're going to abolish nationalities, territories, you'll no longer own things. That's when people are like, no, fuck that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's almost maybe like the Trilateral Commission, like conspiracy theories were actually disseminated by high level people in government,
just to try and delegitimize it.
To then delegitimize it to the people so that they won't swallow it when you hear about it.
Yeah, it's like delegitimizing the news. Like, then if you can't trust the news, then where do you go?
Yeah,
and if you can't trust the Trilateral Commission, you have to go. I mean, it's always
you have to go somewhere else where it isn't people trying to weave the world together. Frustrating.
It is frustrating. This one, you're almost like, see, the last two of these three seem totally awesome.
Yeah,
and you're just like, where's the dig? You know, like, why?
What is it that made people go, this is evil?
But I mean, there are people who believe that the Sandy Hook people were bullshitting. I mean, it's almost like you don't want to believe anything.
Alex Jones is getting sued over that, thank God.
I saw by like 3 different parents.
Yeah, good for them.
It's good. He's insane.
Dude, that man's completely off the rails.
Yeah, I mean,
But hey, Rush Limbaugh can fucking be on 400 Oxycontin a day and still have his job and tell people how to think, so who the fuck knows?
Yeah. Oh, boy. Well, another episode in the bag, man.
Yeah.
Started off pretty depressing, and then it got kind of awesome. Then it got puzzling.
Depressing.
It's just like, it's depressing because people seemingly, like in the Matrix, where they're like, we actually made the first Matrix a utopia, and you rejected it. This almost lends credence to that.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe you can't make a utopia because people just don't want it. Maybe like, I feel like it's almost like you thrive on the need to, like gossip. Like, it's like a level of gossip that also talks about evil, like how you're good, you're like some, Templar against the crusader against these encroaching nightmare people who only want to serve Satan or whatever the hell you think.
Yeah.
And it's just like, not true. But it's funny because we started off with the government being evil people, and then we're like,
and it's real.
Yeah, and then we're like, and this is the Trilateral Commission, people who are trying to do good, and they're evil to some people. So
It's hard, man.
you can almost see where if the government is evil, any group could be evil. It almost is like saying, hey, if this government, the people who are designed to protect us and serve the people, are instead kidnapping and torturing the people, you can't trust anybody.
Yeah, they could be doing anything.
So, I guess I sort of see where you could doubt the Trilateral.
But it's like, but when you look at MK Ultra, like you can't. They tried to hide it.
Yeah, they tried to hide it, and the goal of it was nefarious.
Yeah, all of that was. It started out bad. They hid it. They did terrible things. HARP and the Trilateral Commission's like everything about them you can look up. It's
public knowledge.
It's public knowledge. None of it's secretive. But just because it's the government,
just because it's the government, that's the end.
I just can't believe that open house thing blew my mind.
That's like the funniest thing you said.
Yeah, because I'm like,
the guy's just like, no way. I can't go there.
Well, just the fact that they do that so people don't do it. It's like, they're like, no, please.
Come here.
We're helping you. Like, we've improved communications, travel, like locating ability. Like, come on. We've done so much.
We just want to help you.
Stop telling us we start earthquakes. We did not cause a tsunami. Like, people blame them for that shit. People blame them for the tsunami.
Yeah.
People blame them for the earthquake in Japan. Like,
people blame them for a lot of stuff. Oh, before we wrap up, we should give a special shout out. To
we've got a man on the inside.
We got a man on the inside.
He's gonna feed us information. Can't say his name. He's just a.
We're gonna call him.
We're
gonna call him Pee-Pee Squelly.
Pee-Pee Squelly. I like that. I mean, I could just call him any of the various names. I always pronounce his name wrong on purpose, but I'm not gonna do that. He's our man on the inside. He works for a government organization we're not going to name directly.
Yeah.
But it has 4 letters in it.
And deals with things not necessarily on our planet.
Yeah. Yes. And he's going to be sending us information about, he fields emails sent to this organization by lunatics. And he's sent us a bunch of the best ones.
Oh, man.
It's a lot.
I was reading about it was
the only one I read before was the Goose Lady.
I was gonna say the Goose Lady. That Goose Lady's amazing.
Fucking awesome. Yeah. So look forward to that in the future. We're gonna start disseminating.
We'll leak some of that on the episode and also on the Facebook page. We have been sharing conspiracy things on the Facebook page. So if you decide to if you in the kindness of your heart, like us or Thundergrunt, they both share it. So. I think that's about it.
What are we talking about next episode?
We're not talking about what we're talking. It's a conspiracy. I will tell. You know what? We'll give them a hint, but it won't be about anything that we're doing.
Sure.
I believe if things go right, the next episode will have a. So this goes up to 30 in range of craziness. I don't remember what this one is.
I think this was a 9.
Is this a 9? This is an 8.
8.
So that should tell you how weird it is. And the first episode, the last episode, was a 5.
Yeah.
So if things go right, the next episode is a 28 out of 30.
I mean, if things go really right, we'll be fucking shipped off in a container that will be dropped into the middle of the ocean.
Yeah. So this might be the last episode. You never know. But tune in next time for some more lunacy. Once again, I have been Bah.
Snap, signing off.
Have an enlightened day.
You have just listened to They Know, a pseudo-educational podcast about pseudo-science and conspiracy theories, available only on Thundergrunt. Questions, complaints, conspiracy theories, and other truths can be posted to facebook.com/theyknowpodcast. Trust no one, except us, of course.